Signature Bank Studios.
Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Some interesting comments on presidential pardons yesterday. Starting with Speaker Mike Johnson talking about Biden's preemptive pardons, something that was anathema to our republic back when the left was predicting Trump would do it at the end of his first term. Didn't happen. Happened at the end of Biden's term. And, of course, they're church mice in response to it. Here's Speaker Johnson.
It was shocking. I mean, it was shocking what President Biden did on the way out, pardoning his family for more than a decade of whatever activity, any nonviolent offenses. It was breathtaking to us. I don't think that's anything like that's ever been anticipated. And by the way, go look at the tape. 4 years ago, when it was just implied that President Trump might do something similar, they were apoplectic. Joe Biden himself, Adam Schiff, Chuck Schumer. Roll the tape. They all said that would be crazy and unconscionable, and now they're cheering it along. To us, it is disgusting. To us, it probably proves the point, the suspicion that, they call it the Biden crime family. If they weren't the crime family, why do they need pardons, right? Look, there's a lot of attention that's going to be paid to this, and I think that is appropriate, and we will be looking at it as well. So, yeah.
I don't know what we will be looking at it exactly means. I'm not too sanguine about Speaker Johnson or House Republicans accomplishing much in this direction, but maybe I'm missing something. The more interesting comment on pardons, I thought, last night, came from President, again, Trump himself, on with Sean Hannity on the one preemptive pardon not made by the big guy.
I was given the option. They said, sir, would you like to pardon everybody, including yourself? I said, I'm not going to pardon anybody. We didn't do anything wrong. And we had people that suffered. They're incredible patriots. We had people that suffered. You had Bannon put in jail. You had Peter Navarro put in jail. You had people that suffered. And far worse than that, they've lost their fortunes. They've lost their nest egg, paying it to lawyers. And those people... And people said, and they wouldn't have even taken, most of those people, they wouldn't have even taken a pardon. This guy went around giving everybody pardons. And the funny thing, maybe the sad thing, is he didn't give himself a pardon. And if you look at it, it all had to do with him.
Ooh. It did all have to do with him, didn't it? You can't have a Biden hillbilly crime family without the top hillbilly.
The big guy.
So this raises the specter again of looking at the one guy in that crime family, the head of it, ostensibly, who does have legal exposure, regardless of what the special counsel said about his capacity to stand trial. For more on this and other matters of legal import, please be joined again by Mike Davis. He's the founder and president of the Article 3 Project, former chief counsel for nominations to Senate Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley as well. Mike, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Well, what about going where the facts lead? I mean, if Jim Comer referred James Biden for prosecution, with everything we know about the lies that Joe Biden told about the business dealings of brother and son, why should Joe Biden get a pass?
Well, he shouldn't. I mean, we have evidence in the form of bank records that House Oversight Chairman James Comer has subpoenaed and made public that over $20 million went from our worst enemies into what seems like every Biden family member's bank accounts, except for the 6-year-old granddaughter who they refused to claim and only began pretending to claim under political pressure. So what were these corrupt foreign oligarchs buying from the Biden? I know that the Trump family does real estate. They build hotels in foreign countries. I'm trying to figure out what the Bidens sell in these foreign countries other than access to the vice president's, then Vice President Joe Biden and maybe even President Joe Biden. Here's the bigger issue. Even separate from these pardons of his family members to protect himself, there is a national security implication here. Obviously, that they have to do a national security assessment. They have to do an intel assessment. And now that Joe Biden has pardoned his family members can no longer invoke the Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. And so the Trump 47 intel agencies and Justice Department, along with the House and Senate intel committees and oversight committees, should call in the Biden family and have them explain what happened so we can do an intel assessment and we can figure out how our national security was compromised by these corrupt dealings by Joe Biden and his family.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked to some law professors and who I have great regard for, but they just, they raise this idea of Robert Hur saying, I'm not going to pursue on the classified docs case because I don't think I could get a conviction. He's not fit to stand trial. So, well, there's that. Well, wait a second. If there is evidence of criminal wrongdoing, then if President Biden, through his legal counsel, were there to be a potential prosecution, wants to make the case that he's not fit to stand trial, well, he can make that case in a court of law, and a judge can decide. I mean, Robert Hur's pronouncement is not the end of the discussion on the topic. It shouldn't be.
No, it wasn't. It was just a dodge by Robert Hur, who I knew would do nothing, right? I knew that he would not pursue prosecution against Biden because Robert Hur is a Rod Rosenstein, Chris Wray guy, and so it doesn't surprise me. That's why Merrick Garland picked him, because they knew that Rob Hur wasn't going to do a damn thing. But I would say this is, even if there aren't going to be prosecutions here, you still have to do the national security assessment, the intel assessment, to see how our national security is compromised. It continues to be compromised, so we can fix this.
Well, and that would necessarily include a review of Mark Milley, one of the under-discussed people who got a preemptive pardon as well.
Yeah, Mark Milley. I wrote an opinion piece on this. I don't know how it's not treason what Mark Milley did, and I'll explain. That's a strong word. Mark Milley, as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff for President Trump, told Milley's Chinese counterpart that Milley would give this Chinese counterpart a heads up before President Trump launched any surprise attack on China. Well, that gives America's enemy key, crucial, strategic and tactical intel, and it puts American lives in grave danger if China is ready for a surprise attack. So I don't know how that's not treason. Now, China's sitting back thinking, we're in good shape. We can push and be as aggressive as we want in Taiwan and elsewhere because Mark Milley's going to give us a heads up before Trump counters us and attacks. So it's amazing to me that he was able to get away with that, and then he got a pardon from Joe Biden after he did it because Mark Milley played his political role of undermining President Trump and helping Joe Biden.
Why don't you think Joe Biden pardoned himself?
Why didn't he pardon himself?
Why didn't he pardon? Yeah.
That's a good question. I think he knows that Republicans don't have the backbone to indict a Democrat president, even though the Democrats indicted a Republican president 4 times.
Right.
But even if, Joe Biden should be indicted, there's no question. He committed crimes. And these weren't crimes when he was the president of the United States, subject to a presidential immunity for his official acts. Like, for example, when Barack Obama ordered the drone strike on 2 American citizens, including a minor, which is capital murder if you don't have presidential immunity. But Joe Biden should have been charged for his corruption, right? He should have been charged for foreign bribery and corruption and many other crimes, but he wasn't. But at a minimum, the Justice Department, the intel agencies, the congressional committees need to do the intel assessment.
Fauci, another beneficiary of a preemptive pardon, and again, I would like more color from Speaker Johnson or somebody on dating Fauci's blanket pardon back to 2014, a la Hunter. I mean, you might as well go back to 1984 when he first assumed the helm of NIH at that juncture. But did you find that curious that it went all the way back to 2014?
Yeah, it is very curious because that's when the Biden, that you can really find the evidence of the Biden corruption, right? And so that's the date that they used for Hunter Biden and Joe's brother and sisters-in-law. But with Tony Fauci, this is the biggest crime against humanity I've ever seen. Tony Fauci funded COVID through NIH in the Wuhan lab illegally, gain-of-function research. He illegally funded. He did it through subcontractors. He lied about it.
Yeah.
He covered it up. He obstructed justice. He perjured himself to Congress. This led to trillions of dollars in lost treasure, millions of dollars in lost lives, learning loss for children all over the world, especially for black kids who are already at a great disadvantage, and years of human misery and suffering. And this guy is going to make millions of dollars off of this vaccine for this COVID that he created illegally, and he's going to be treated like a hero, and then he's going to get Joe Biden's pardon. Tony Fauci should be in prison for the rest of his life.
The case that you've made previously, which we've picked up on this show too, that there should be an investigation into Bragg, Garland, Colangelo, Fani Willis, and her lover in terms of a federal conspiracy to deprive President Trump of his civil rights. Whether or not congressional Republicans have the intestinal fortitude to pursue or to call for such action, what's your perspective on Pam Bondi's disposition towards doing something like that?
I have not had this discussion with her, but I know that Pam Bondi is bold. She's fearless. She was the Attorney General for the state of Florida for 8 years. She's proven that she doesn't care about the political blowback. She's going to follow the law. So I would not be surprised at all if Pam Bondi opens a criminal probe under 18 U.S.C. Section 241, conspiracy against rights for this Democrat lawfare and election interference against President Trump, going all the way back to Crossfire Hurricane, the biggest scandal in American history, where you had these Democrat operatives, prosecutors, agents, judges, witness, other co-conspirators, politicizing and weaponizing intel agencies and law enforcement to go after political enemies. Trump, his top aides like Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro, who went to prison, Trump supporters on January 6th who were politically persecuted. Yes, persecuted according to the Supreme Court's Fisher ruling last June. You have parents being targeted by the Biden FBI for expressing outrage about gender chaos in schools and the resulting rapes in their kids' high school bathrooms. You have Christians, including a 75-year-old Christian, being thrown in prison under the FACE Act for praying at abortion clinics, while the Biden Justice Department gave amnesty to the Biden family, Joe Biden himself, BLM, Antifa, Hamas supporters, Planned Parenthood activists, transgender terrorists who are going after Catholic churches. It's just Joe Biden and his Justice Department and his intel agencies have been so politicized and weaponized against political enemies, and there has to be accountability for this. There has to be a criminal probe. There have to be congressional probes. There must be severe legal, political, and financial consequences to this, so this never happens again.
Hey, real quick, Mike, did they ever meet that sixth grandchild that they, made an announcement in such a curt manner and so disrespectful of her? Did they ever meet her?
I don't know if they have, and for her sake, I hope that they have not, because Joe Biden has, if you look at Ashley Biden's diary, where she talks about Joe Biden taking inappropriate showers with her, and Hunter Biden calling Joe Biden pedo Peter, I wouldn't want any kid to be meeting with Joe Biden.
On the J6 pardons, so Trump drew the line with 14 individuals whose sentences he commuted rather than granting them full pardon. In your view, should he have drawn another line between those who were convicted of crimes involving violence versus those who were not?
So we're talking about Joe Biden's pardons, where he he freed child rapists and murderers from death row, and then pardoned his family and pardoned two people, or he pardoned a guy who killed two FBI agents. So then people are criticizing President Trump because he pardons the January 6th defendants, largely pardoned them after the Supreme Court ruled in the Fisher decision in June that they were politically persecuted. They absolutely were. They had the full weight of the federal government thrown at them. They had their lives destroyed for 4 years. They were overcharged. They were kept in prison before their trials. They were held in solitary confinement. They were abused. These Trump supporters were absolutely persecuted, and they were treated differently from the much more deadly and destructive BLM and Antifa rioters who caused a hell of a lot more death and damage to our country. So Trump's January 6th supporters suffered enough. The deterrent effect was certainly in place, and so Trump absolutely should have pardoned them.
Mike Davis is the founder and president of the Article 3 Project, former chief counsel for nominations to Senate Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley as well. Mike, thank you as always. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, and he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Your show keeps me alive during the week. There's nobody I'd rather listen to between 5 and 9 in the morning than you guys.
On AM 560, The Answer.
Papa Nicholas Coffee, a Chicagoland tradition for over 5 generations, combines heritage and innovation in every cup. Our coffee is locally roasted, hot air roasted, and cold blended in small batches to ensure premium quality. Whether you prefer a 12-ounce bag or a 28-ounce bag, or even the convenience of K-Cups, you'll find Papa Nicholas Coffee at your local retailer. Taste the difference that 5 generations of expertise brings. Choose Papa Nicholas Coffee, because great coffee is our family tradition. Visit online at papanicholas.com. That's papanicholas.com.
AM 560, The Answer.
All right, coming up on Chicago's Morning Answer.
At 8:08, we'll talk to Larry Dowling, retired pastor at St. Simon of Serene Catholic Parish in Chicago, about the Catholic Church in Chicago and people in this country illegally. 8:08, stay tuned.
But first, we have to stop by that newsroom once again. Here is Mike Scott.
Alderman